Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, with the reaction continuing to the $75,000 invitational tournament that OpTic Texas took the victory, and big questions on what's going to change going forwards and whether Scrap might get his own way when it comes to the gentleman's agreement of the sniper. Dashy though says that he's working with the developers, and the developers are very keen to respond in terms of making changes that will make all the pro players happy, although, you know, the pro players, probably there will still be some frustrations here. Does this tournament count as a chip as well? Many other key conversations on the day, especially Formal, saying that in this current form, OpTic look incredibly difficult to beat. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Wanted to start with a couple of things, kind of overall Black Ops 7 right now, and where we might go in the future, of course, because I think most people in the competitive scene would agree it's been a pretty good start to the year. BO7 ticks a lot of boxes from a competitive perspective. Yeah, did they rug pull us a bit on skill-based matchmaking? Maybe yes, but is it that bad? No. Is it better than it has been in previous CODs? Yes. Are the maps better? You know, the movement's gone back to more of a almost pseudo jetpack style that we've not had in a very long time, but the numbers aren't good, right? And this isn't a massive surprise. The campaign isn't really hitting. Battlefield 6 has come out, but the launch weekend sales, just the sales in general for BO7, aren't looking good, and I think it's a bit concerning on what the future looks like. I don't think this is necessarily because Traixx have made a bad game, right? Like, I think many would say, actually, no, there's lots of positives from this game, but it may just be like an overall Call of Duty phenomenon, right? Tom Henderson gives his perspective and says, look, making these games every year, certainly when you've got Black Ops 6 and then you're dropping Black Ops 7 the year after, from like a marketing perspective, it's probably not ideal, is it, right? People are going to be like, well, basically just played that game last year, so why am I going to buy it again? Last year's game wasn't all that good, so, you know, what's the point getting the sequel, right, for the year after? I think that's the issue. I don't know if COD is going to change their approach in terms of yearly releases, but I think it's kind of unfortunate, really. I don't think this is the fact that Traixx have made a bad game or anything. Look, from a competitive perspective, I think we're going to look at it differently to a more casual audience who wants to get on, kick their feet up, and not get absolutely spun on by someone bouncing off a wall. I do understand that, but equally, even if that wasn't the case, I don't think this year's game would have sold massively, just given the context in the market in general. It may mean that Infinity Ward has absolute free reign next year to go wild with what they want to do, which I'm not looking forward to, but we'll see about that. Couple of other things related to Slasher. This was noted from Abuzah. Of course, FaZe did not have a good tournament at the 75K Invitational. Well, they came top 6. It wasn't embarrassing, but it wasn't exactly ideal. Slasher turning up late for work or whatever, wake up boss. He also talked about the maps. He talked about Raid is horrible, not meant for this game. Now, I don't agree with this personally. I do think that Raid plays differently. The spawns are different. They massacred Raid, Slasher says. Is Raid playing as well in this game as it used to back in BO2 or maybe in Cold War? Maybe not. But is it still Raid? Yes. And is it still better than some of the other alternatives? I do think yes. There could be some tweaks. Look, the wall bouncing does change things in terms of the way that a map plays, but it's still one of the most fundamentally best map designs in the game, so I don't think would be wise to replace it. There was a lot of talk during the weekend on the map set. Are we happy with how it stands? Dashy's talking about, look, Cortex, best map in the game. He tweeted this after OpTic were just dominating everyone in scrims on Cortex over the last few days. So, yeah, they didn't get to, there was some vetoes that they're not going to get to play it much, I'd imagine, with their current enjoyment of the map. Will it stay? It's kind of this weird, like, Hunted from Black Ops 3 and BioLab from Infinite Warfare crossover with a couple of other features. You know, I thought early days it looked pretty good. Then there were some questions on how it flowed. I think that the BioLab section with all the movement is a bit of a mess, but some teams like it, some teams don't. I think we've got a decent map pool as it stands. We'll see what the CDL come up with over the coming days when things officially get underway. Some talk about overload. Marky B come out with this idea, and Jake Hull kind of, well, pushes it out there again to say, okay, first of all, the overtime, we need a better way to determine the winner than go to a search and destroy round. Secondly, I think there is a good idea to say, okay, if you have the ball, the round timer stops counting down, but we reduce the round timer. I mean, they did this in Hardpoint, famously. If you guys ever watched any Black Ops 2 from 2013, or even late 2012, but 2012, 2013, you'll know that in that game, there was no hill timer stopped counting down when somebody was in control of the hill. So it was a 10-minute map, and it was always a 10-minute map. So in Hardpoint, if you went up by 60 with a minute to go, the final 60 seconds, you were just playing for kills for the stat line, right? That's all it was, because it simply did not matter. I think it was then Black Ops 3, I think Advanced Advanced Warfare was the same. I think Black Ops 3, that's when Traixx introduced the idea of, okay, instead of a 10-minute timer, it's a 5-minute timer, but when someone has control of the hardpoint, the time does not count down at all. So it's first to 250, as it were. Now, if you do that on Overload, it does change things, because let's say you made the round timer 230, but you stop the timer when someone has the ball. At least in hardpoint, you know that the map is not going to last more than like 12 minutes, because someone's going to get to 250 and win. Whereas in this case, the rounds could theoretically last forever. If I hold the ball and I just camp in my spawn, of course there's no incentive to doing that, because, well, the timer isn't counting down, and if I'm in my spawn, even if I'm leading by 10 points or whatever, I'm getting no closer to ending the game, right? So that's the idea of it, is that it prevents people from basically taking a lead and then just holding the objective and preventing the other team from doing anything about it. That is an option. I think I like this idea. I'd be a little bit concerned about them getting the rounds timer right, just to make sure that the game drags on for a good amount of time. You know, they need to look at some stats on percentage of the rounds where the EMP device is actually being held, and use that to calculate what the round timer should be to make it still roughly a 5-minute half, because you wouldn't want them to get this wrong and then all of a sudden the halves are lasting forever because the time isn't counting down and there's no limit on what the objective scoring is. So there's some talk about that. If you guys didn't watch this morning's video or see what I talked about right at the end, I thought I'd just put these up again, the Lion Man cards that he made for the 75k Invitational. It's pretty impressive, really. Huke had a 99, Merc had a 99, Shotzzy had a 96 with a 2.11 in Search and Destroy, Dashy with a measly 88 overall with a best hill time per 10. It's always fascinating to look at these early kind of trends in terms of where the teams are doing their objective work. Dashy sitting in hill a lot, Mercules sitting in hill more than the SMGs. That is, I think, the way to do it right now, certainly when you've got Huke and Shotzzy on your team. And as JP says, picked up right where we left off. Still lots of work to do to understand the game. Some great reps nonetheless. GG's to everyone we played. One of the questions then became, does this tournament count as a chip? Now, this is always an interesting question, because there were minor tournaments last year, there were major tournaments last year. There are some tournaments, such as Frag Cup 4 or whatever it was, way back in Black Ops 2. It was an online tournament, all the teams were there, but the teams at the time considered that to be an actual chip. There were various reasons for that. There was other things that weren't really going on at the time. The players had kind of had the general consensus that this tournament did matter as much as some other tournaments. Now, nowadays, I would kind of split things more into categories. You've got Premier tournaments or like S-tier tournaments. You've then got maybe like A-tier tournaments, B-tier tournaments, whatever you want to say. This is, as Hitch says, a 2-day, $75,000 variant tournament, double elimination with 16 teams, full rosters. And we're a week into the game, which always maybe takes a little bit away just because it's so early. But, you know, obviously people will have their perspective on that. People are also comparing it to, let's say, the Kickoff Classic that happened in Vanguard when, you know, it was a LAN event, but it wasn't the best format, for example. Look, to me, if it's not a LAN, it doesn't count as a chip. That's just my opinion. You guys may disagree with that, but certainly nowadays, I think this is, you know, this is more similar to like a minor tournament, but maybe it's better than a minor because the minors were singular limb, they were only 20k. So I don't know, I can see the arguments. Now, look, if LA Thieves won this tournament and OpTic bombed out top 16, would Hitch be tweeting this? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's just like, you know how it goes, right? So I think it's interesting. But I guess I'll also say that if you are counting the homestands from Modern Warfare 19 as chips, which people do, then this also has to count, I think, in that regard. Because, well, if those tournaments count, I know that was the only thing we could do at the time, but those were 8-team tournaments that were single elimination in the final rounds, and they were all online. So, you know, if those count, this probably counts. I don't want to count either, personally, but, you know, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. There was a lot of drama about things this weekend, the smokes, the snipers, what's going on there, because they were allowed to use a smoke. There was some controversy about that, certainly in the grand finals, and the snipers, they like to say, well, if we can have a smoke, then we can stop the snipers and all this. Now, the pros are generally of the opinion that the sniper rifle is very strong, which it is. You can miss shots. It doesn't aim for you. We did see some disgusting shots, even with the sniper in play as it was. How many did we see per team? One, right? We saw on some maps, both teams have one sniper per team. Sometimes we only had one sniper, one team, and the other team wasn't running it. So, look, I don't think it's massively overpowered, but the pros are generally of the opinion that it would be better if we had no aim assist on the snipers, because that's what it was like back in Black Ops 3, for example, maybe BO4 as well. And, well, Dashy says he talked to Matt Sconce about this, and this is funny because you remember when Scrappy said the other day, well, the CDL doesn't listen, and they're not going to change anything about overload anyway, so it's cooked. And then Matt Sconce said, well, Scrap's never talked to me, so I don't know what you're talking about, right? That was the implication. So Dashy was like, look, I talked to Matt and I said, okay, is there a way to disable aim assist just for sniper rifles, just in CDL modes? And he says, okay, maybe, maybe not, but we're going to have a look at it.
Maddox is the GOAT.
That's it. It ends there.
Maddox is literally the GOAT.
Yo,
I just asked like fucking like a little bit of a long shot question, but is there any way we can get like a setting that disables aim assist for the snipers and CDL like the rule set? And then he was like whatever, great to hear. But it was like it would take some work, but might be something we can do. We'll talk to the team. Bro, this guy's insta respond to me too.
Bro, we love Maddox, bro. He's actually
this guy's actually fucking so goaty.
Shaq, can we get a double for that, then? Maddox is actually the GOAT, dude. I swear.
Then he said,
Shotzi's live. W Shotzzy. Teams are complaining about scrimming, yet the team's slamming all of them if they're live. Makes no sense.
Best team in the game. True.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Everybody's bitching, saying they don't want to stream scrims or stream the tournament.
2-2 now. 2-2 now in this match.
OpTic has no problem doing it.
Ain't no problem.
I think that's what's scary.
I mean, dude, Chad, this is just like such a dominant series again, man. Like, Hardpoint was pretty close, but these last few matches have just been absolute obliteration. OpTic team,
what the hell is it right now? Like, what is it?
They actually look so fucking good. They haven't lost a map yet in this whole tournament. Definitely, probably a cut, like a little cut. It wasn't like
it's not completely free. Like it's not one of those like. That's why I showed up that's why I showed up early today, man. I was like, bro, this is like, imagine we just lose to fucking Stallions like 3-2 or like some big series, and it's like,
that's a cut.
And I already know how it works. Like it's just like we don't think it's a big deal, but somebody on the team thinks it's a big deal, and that little and that's all it takes. It's just one little piece of down.
Yep. One cut, bro. Like a reverse sweep from fucking Doug is a cut.
That's
I'm not gonna lie, that's like an Achilles cut.
That's like you might have tore your ACL.
Yeah, you're out for at least like 6 weeks.
You need time.
It's time.
So lots of great reaction there to the tournament yesterday. I thought it was funny from Form's perspective as well, and Dashy's on Falcons, right? Because they got reverse swept by Doug St. Martin. You know, is that going to be a bit of a dagger? I know that we're only a week into the game and all this, but still, right? It's still relevant that these guys have lost in that manner, and maybe it will compromise them to some degree, certainly if things start to go wrong when the season properly gets underway. Look, it's look, it was an important weekend at the end of the day. Whether you count it or not in that way, it was still an important weekend. Shotzzy was streaming the whole time, and I think this was another additional saga because, as Dashy is saying, look, Scrappy's not going to get his way GAing these sniper rifles, right? We're not going to let him get away with it. And look, the other players might try, but a number of teams have good sniper rifle players. So it's not like they're just going to want to ban it to hurt other teams like some teams do. You know, we've seen a number of good sniper shots hit by a number of different players in teams the last few days. So I don't think it's so clear cut. And certainly, if they get rid of the aim assist, I can't see any real logic to keeping it out at that point. It also creates some very entertaining clips to watch, which as fans and as a community is absolutely what we want as well. So LA Thieves might struggle with that one. And also they might struggle with the fact that, well, Shotzzy was streaming the whole weekend, they weren't streaming anything, and OpTic still went on to win the tournament. So yeah, their run over the last few weeks and months has been particularly impressive. They've now won their last 14 series in a row. They last lost back in May. So look, whether you count this tournament or not, whatever, the reality is they've absolutely picked up where they left off. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.